You know that moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? When everything you thought you knew about yourself suddenly becomes a question mark instead of a period. Mine happened on a Tuesday night in March, in the equipment room of Riverside Arena. Surrounded by the smell of sweat-soaked gear and the echo of skates on ice, my name is Connor Hayes. And I've been playing hockey since I was 6 years old. 20 years of early morning practices, frozen fingers, and the comforting rhythm of stick against puck. Hockey was my identity, my safe space. The one thing I understood when everything else felt complicated. I was good at it, too good enough to play semi-pro for the Portland Pioneers. Good enough to dream about the NHL, even though I was probably past my prime at 20-6. But this story isn't really about hockey, it's about Mikhail Vokovmisha to his friends, and how a simple request for help became the catalyst for the most terrifying, exhilarating, life-changing experience of my existence. Let me take you back to the beginning. The season had been brutal. We were fighting for a playoff spot, and the pressure was getting to everyone. Coach Richardson had been riding us hard, and tensions in the locker room were running high. I'd always been the steady one, the guy who kept his head down and did the work. I wasn't the most talented player on the team, but I was reliable, consistent, safe. Misha was the opposite. He'd joined the Pioneers 3 months earlier. A late-season acquisition from a team in Minnesota. Russian-born, raised in Toronto, he played with this wild, creative style that either resulted in spectacular goals or spectacular mistakes. There was no in-between with Misha. He was all passion and instinct. Dark curls that never quite stayed in place, eyes the color of storm clouds, and this intensity that seemed to radiate off him like heat. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed him. Everyone noticed Misha. He was magnetic in a way that had nothing to do with his looks. Though those didn't hurt, and everything to do with how fully he inhabited every moment. When he laughed, it filled the room. When he was angry, the air crackled. When he was focused, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. We'd barely spoken beyond the usual team communication. A few nice shot comments, tactical discussions during practice, the occasional nod in passing. I told myself I was being professional, maintaining appropriate boundaries. The truth was more complicated. Something about Misha made me nervous in a way I couldn't quite name, so I kept my distance. Until that Tuesday night, practice had run late. Most of the guys had already cleared out, eager to get home to their families or their Tuesday night routines. I was taking my time, enjoying the quiet of the empty locker room, when Misha appeared in the doorway. "Connor," he said, his accent giving my name an unfamiliar music. "You have a minute?" I looked up from unlacing my skates. He was still in his practice gear, his hair damp with sweat. And there was something uncertain in his expression that I'd never seen before. Misha was always confident, sometimes to the point of arrogance. This vulnerability was new.
"Sure," I said, trying to sound casual.
"What's up?" He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The click of the latch seemed unnaturally loud. "I need help," he said, the words coming out reluctantly, like he wasn't used to admitting weakness. With English, my speaking, my understanding of the idioms. "Coach is frustrated with me because I miss things, you know. Miscommunicate on the ice." It was true. There had been a few plays that had broken down because of language barriers. Moments where Misha had misunderstood a call or hadn't processed instructions quickly enough. But his English seemed pretty good to me. "Your English sounds fine," I said honestly. "For conversation, yes. But the technical terms, the speed of communication during a game," he made a frustrated gesture. "I'm missing things. Small things. But they matter. Have you talked to Coach about getting a tutor or something?" "I did. He says the team can arrange something, but it will take time. Paperwork, budgets, whatever." Misha's jaw tightened. "We don't have time. Playoffs are in 6 weeks. I need to improve now, or I'm a liability." The self-awareness surprised me. Misha had always seemed so confident, almost cocky. Hearing him admit vulnerability, seeing the worry in his eyes, it shifted something in my perception of him.
"So you want me to help you?"
I asked. "You're good with words? I noticed this about you. When you explain plays, you're clear. patient, and he hesitated, a faint color rising in his cheeks. I feel comfortable with you. Some of the other guys there, he trailed off, but I understood. Some of the other guys were assholes. Not maliciously necessarily, but they had that locker room mentality where showing weakness invited mockery. Misha was foreign, intense, different. Some of the team respected that. Others used it as ammunition for jokes that weren't quite jokes. Okay, I heard myself say. Yeah, I can help. The relief that flooded his face was almost painful to witness. Really? You're sure? I don't want to impose on your time, it's fine. We can meet a couple times a week. Work on hockey terminology, idioms, whatever you need. Connor, seriously, I owe you. He extended his hand. And when I took it, I felt the calluses on his palm. The strength in his grip, and something else, a spark of electricity that traveled up my arm and lodged somewhere, my chest. I pulled my hand back quickly. No problem. It's what teammates do. We started the following Thursday at my apartment. I'd suggested a neutral location, a coffee shop, or the arena, but Misha had pointed out that we'd need quiet and privacy to work effectively. So my apartment it was. I'd spent an embarrassing amount of time cleaning that afternoon, telling myself it was just basic courtesy, not nervousness. I'd even hidden the few personal photos I had on display because there was anything revealing in them. But because I didn't want to invite questions about my conspicuously single status at 26, most of my teammates were married or seriously dating. I'd had a few relationships with women over the years, short-lived things that had ended amicably when they'd fizzled out. I'd told myself I just hadn't met the right person yet, that I was focused on hockey, that there was time. I'd gotten very good at not examining the real reason those relationships never quite worked. Misha arrived exactly on time, carrying a notebook and wearing jeans and a fitted t-shirt that showed off the athletic build, usually hidden under hockey gear. His hair was loose, curling slightly around his face, and he smelled like cedar and something spicy I couldn't identify. Nice place, he said. Looking around my modest one-bedroom with its minimal furniture and hockey memorabilia on the walls, it works, I said. Want something to drink? I've got water, coffee, beer. Coffee would be good. Black, please. I busied myself in the kitchen, grateful for something to do with my hands. When I returned with 2 mugs, Misha had settled on my couch, his notebook open, looking oddly at home in my space. So, I said, sitting in the armchair across from him, maintaining distance. Tell me what specifically you want to work on. We started with hockey terminology, going through different plays and strategies, with me explaining the nuances of phrases like playing the body, crash the net, and wheel and deal. Misha was an attentive student, asking thoughtful questions, taking notes in a mixture of English and what I assumed was Russian, but as the session progressed, I found myself distracted. The way he bit his lower lip when he was concentrating, the animated way he used his hands when explaining something, the occasional flash of his smile when he got something right. There was an energy to him that filled the room, made it feel smaller, made me hyper-aware of every movement. Every breath. You're a good teacher, he said during a break, stretching his arms above his head in a way that made his shirt ride up, revealing a strip of toned stomach. Patient. You don't make me feel stupid. You're not stupid. You're learning a second language while playing professional hockey. That's impressive. Third language, actually. Russian, French, then English. Show off, I said, and he laughed. My parents wanted me to have options. They immigrated to Canada when I was 8, but they made sure I kept up my Russian. And in Canada, French is useful. He paused, something shifting in his expression. It was hard, though, being the foreign kid. Always feeling a little bit outside, you know? I did know, though not for the same reasons. Yeah, I get that. His eyes met mine, and there was a moment of understanding that passed between us, unspoken but palpable. Then he glanced down at his notebook, breaking the connection. Should we continue? I don't want to take up your whole evening. We worked for another hour before Misha declared himself mentally exhausted. As I walked him to the door, he turned his hand on the doorknob. Same time next week? Sure. And if you have questions before then, just text me. Thank you, Connor. Really? He hesitated. then impulsively leaned in and hugged me a quick European-style embrace that left me frozen, breathing in his scent, feeling the solid warmth of his body against mine. Then he was gone, and I was alone in my apartment. My heart racing for reasons I absolutely refused to examine. Over the next 3 weeks, Misha and I fell into a routine. Tuesday and Thursday evenings at my apartment, ostensibly working on English but increasingly just talking about hockey. Yes, but also about our lives, our families, our dreams and fears. I learned that Misha had come out to his family when he was 19, that his parents had struggled with it at first but had come around, that he'd faced discrimination in hockey but had refused to hide who he was. He talked about it casually, not making a big deal of it, but I could hear the undercurrent of pain and defiance in his voice. Some coaches. "They didn't want me because I was open about it," he said one evening, his fingers idly tracing patterns on my coffee table. Said it would be a distraction, bad for team chemistry. As if who I sleep with has anything to do with how I play. My throat was dry. That's bullshit. It is, but it's also reality. Yeah. He looked at me with those storm gray eyes. You're lucky, you know. Being straight, not having to think about it. I should have corrected him then. Should have said something. But the words stuck in my throat, tangled up with years of denial and fear. Yeah, I managed. Lucky. The lie sat between us like a weight. But even as I maintained that deception, something was growing between us. A friendship, certainly, but also something else. Something that made my pulse quicken when his knee accidentally brushed mine on the couch. Something that had me checking my phone constantly for his texts. Something that made me dream about him in ways I'd never let myself dream about anyone. On the ice, Misha's play was improving. The communication issues were less frequent, and Coach Richardson had actually praised his development in a team meeting. Misha had caught my eye across the room and smiled, and I'd felt absurdly proud. Like I'd had a hand in his success. Which I had, I supposed. But it felt like more than that. It felt like we were building something together. The shift happened on a Thursday in early April. The Pioneers had won a crucial game that afternoon, securing our playoff spot with a dramatic overtime goal scored by Misha, naturally. The team had gone out to celebrate, and Misha and I had stayed longer than usual, caught up in the euphoria of victory and maybe one too many beers. When we finally left the bar, Misha suggested we skip our usual session and just hang out. No studying tonight, he said, slinging an arm around my shoulders in a gesture that felt both casual and electric. Just two friends celebrating. Friends. Right, back at my apartment. We collapsed on the couch with leftover pizza and put on a movie neither of us really watched. The beer and the intimacy of the darkened room created a cocoon around us, and our conversation turned deeper, more personal. "I ask you something," Misha said during a lull in the movie. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Sure. Why don't you date? I never see you with anyone. Never hear you talk about anyone. The other guys, they're always mentioning girlfriends, wives, someone they met at a bar. But you," he trailed off. My heart was pounding. "I guess I just haven't met the right person." "But you've had girlfriends before? A few, nothing serious? Why not?" I could feel his eyes on me in the darkness, could sense him waiting for an answer I couldn't give. I don't know. They just didn't work out.
Ow.
Silence stretched between us. Then Misha said very softly, "Connor, it's okay, you know. Whatever the answer is, it's okay." The gentleness in his voice, the acceptance it, broke something open inside me. Years of denial, of carefully maintained walls, of pretending to be someone I wasn't. It all cracked apart. "I'm scared," I whispered, the admission torn from somewhere deep. Of what? Of I couldn't say it. Couldn't form the words that would make it real. Misha shifted closer, his body warm against mine in the darkness. "Connor, look at me." I turned, and his face was inches away, his eyes searching mine. "You don't have to be scared. Not with me." And then, so slowly I could have stopped him if I'd wanted to, he leaned in and kissed me. Misha's lips were softer than I'd imagined, and, God help me, I had imagined them in those treacherous moments between sleep and waking when my defenses were down. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't pull away. Instead, I found myself responding, my hand coming up to cup the back of his neck, fingers threading through those dark curls I'd wanted to touch for weeks. He made a small sound against my mouth, and the kiss deepened, became urgent, desperate, like we were both drowning and this was air. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Every nerve ending was alive, my skin humming with sensation, my heart hammering against my ribs. Connor Misha breathed, his forehead resting against mine. Tell me that was okay? Tell me I didn't just ruin everything. The fear in his voice cut through my shock. I pulled back enough to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his face, the worry that he'd crossed a line, pushed too hard. You didn't ruin anything, I said, my voice rough. That was God, Misha. That was I couldn't find the words, so I kissed him again instead. This time it was me initiating, me claiming, me admitting without words what I'd been denying for years. I wasn't straight. I'd never been straight. And this thing I felt for Mishet wasn't just attraction. It was bigger, deeper, more terrifying than anything I'd ever experienced. We spent that night on my couch, kissing like teenagers, learning the taste and texture of each other's mouths, the sounds we made when we were lost in sensation. We didn't go further than that some unspoken agreement keeping us from moving too fast, from making this purely physical when it was clearly so much more. When dawn started to lighten the sky, Misha pulled back, his lips swollen, his eyes soft. I should go. Let you sleep. Could stay, I offered, my heart in my throat. Could, he agreed. But I think we both need some time to process this. Figure out what it means. He was right, of course. I was reeling. My entire self-concept shattered and reforming into something new. I needed space to breathe, to think, to come to terms with what had just happened. At the door, Misha kissed me once more, tender and sweet. No regrets, he said firmly. Whatever happens next, no regrets about tonight, okay? Okay, I whispered. After he left, I stood in my quiet apartment, touching my lips, still feeling the ghost of his mouth on mine. Everything had changed. Nothing would ever be the same, and I wasn't scared anymore. Or rather, I was terrified, but in a way that felt like possibility instead of paralysis. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mind was racing, replaying every moment, every touch, every word. But beyond the physical memory of Misha's kiss, I was grappling with something much bigger. The realization of who I actually was. I'd spent my whole life performing heterosexuality without realizing it was a performance. Dating women not because I was attracted to them, but because it was expected. Laughing at locker room talk about women's bodies while feeling nothing but detached awkwardness. Telling myself that my lack of real romantic connection was just bad luck, wrong timing. Not being ready. But the truth was simpler and more complicated. I was gay. The word felt strange in my mind. Like trying on a jacket that should fit, but I'd never let myself wear. I'd heard it used as an insult so many times in hockey locker rooms, said with such casual contempt, that I'd internalized the message that it was something to avoid, to hide, to deny at all costs. But Misha wasn't hiding. He'd been openly gay in professional hockey, had faced discrimination and bigotry and kept playing anyway, kept being himself. He was brave in a way I'd never been. My phone buzzed around 6 a.m. A text from Misha. You okay? 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before I finally typed, yeah, you. Better than okay. Can we talk later? After practice? Yes, definitely. Practice that day was surreal. I was running on no sleep and emotional overload, but somehow I played better than I had in weeks. Everything felt sharper, clearer, like some fog had lifted. When Misha and I were on the ice together, the chemistry was undeniable. We moved in sync, anticipated each other's plays, created opportunities that shouldn't have existed. Coach Richardson noticed. Whatever you two are doing, keep it up, he said during a break. That's the kind of teamwork that wins championships. Misha caught my eye and smiled, and I felt warmth bloom in my chest. After practice, we went back to my apartment. This time, there was no pretense of studying. We sat on the couch, careful not to touch yet, the air between us charged with possibility. "So," Misha said, "how are you feeling about everything?" I took a breath, forcing myself to be honest. Confused, scared, but also relieved. Like I finally understand something about myself that never made sense before. "You're gay," he said gently, not a question. "I think so." "Yes." I laughed, a shaky sound. I've never said it out loud before. Never let myself even think it clearly. But yes, I'm gay. Saying the words felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering I could fly. Misha reached over and took my hand, lacing our fingers together. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying, but right. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." He squeezed my hand. "Connor, I need you to know, I'm not trying to push you into anything. If you need time, space, if you want to figure things out before this becomes something I understand." "What if I don't want space?" I asked, looking at our joined hands. "What if I want this?" "Want you?" "Then I'd say I'm the luckiest guy in Portland." His smile was radiant. "But I also think you need to be sure. Coming out is a process, and it's different for everyone. I don't want you to do anything before you're ready just because of how you feel about me." The maturity and consideration in his response made me fall for him even harder. "You're being really decent about this. I like you, Connor. Lot. I want to do this right." We spent the afternoon talking about my slow realization of my sexuality, about Misha's coming out journey, about what a relationship between us might look like. He told me about the discrimination he'd faced, the teammates who'd rejected him, the coaches who'd passed him over, but also about the people who'd supported him, who'd shown him that being authentic was worth the cost. "It hasn't been easy," he admitted, "but I couldn't live pretending to be someone I'm not. That would have killed me slowly." I understood that now. The performance of straightness had been exhausting, even if I hadn't recognized it as a performance. "What about the team?" I asked. If this becomes something, do we tell them?" Misha considered. "That's up to you. I'm already out, so it wouldn't change anything for me. But for you?" He paused. "I won't lie. Some guys will be fine with it. Some won't. You'll face things you haven't had to face before. Questions about your masculinity, your place on the team. People thinking they can say things to you they'd never say otherwise. But you've dealt with all that. I have. And I'm still here. Still playing. Still myself." Oh. His eyes met mine. "It's worth it, Connor. Being authentic, being able to love who you love, openly, it's worth whatever shit comes with it." Over the next week, Misha and I existed in a strange limbo. We continued our usual sessions at my apartment, but now they included kissing, careful touches, whispered conversations about what we wanted. We were dating, I supposed, though we hadn't labeled it that way. On the ice, our connection was undeniable. We were playing the best hockey of our lives, feeding off each other's energy, creating scoring opportunities that left our opponents scrambling. The Pioneers were on a winning streak heading into playoffs, and Misha and I were a big part of that success. But off the ice, I was wrestling with a decision I knew I'd have to make eventually, to come out or stay closeted. Misha never pressured me. He was content to keep our relationship private, to be patient while I figured things out. But I could see the toll secrecy took on him, the way he had to be careful about how he looked at me in public, the way he couldn't touch me casually like teammates did, the way he had to pretend to be just my friend. I thought about what he'd said about authenticity, about the cost of living a lie. I thought about my parents, my teammates, my career. I thought about the boy I'd been, who'd learned to hide so well he'd hidden even from himself. And I thought about Misha Brave, beautiful Misha, who'd refused to let fear dictate his life. The decision crystallized during a team meeting 2 weeks before playoffs. Coach Richardson was going over strategy, emphasizing the importance of trust and communication between teammates. "You have to have each other's backs," he said, on and off the ice. "That's what makes a team." I looked around the room at my teammates, guys I'd played with for years, guys I'd celebrated victories and mourned losses with. Some of them I trusted implicitly. Others I wasn't sure about. But they were my team, and if I couldn't be honest with them, what did that say about my faith in our bond? After the meeting, I pulled Misha aside. I want to tell them, I said. The team. About us. About me. His eyes widened. Are you sure? You don't have to. I know I don't have to. But I want to. I'm tired of hiding. And if I can't be myself with my team, then what's the point? A slow smile spread across his face. When? Soon? Maybe after our next game? I want to do it right, not make a big, dramatic announcement. Just tell them I'll be right there with you, Misha promised. Whatever happens, we face it together. We won our next game for 2-2, with Misha scoring twice and me getting an assist on both goals. The locker room was jubilant, everyone riding the high of victory. It would have been easy to let the moment pass, to put off the conversation for another day, but I was done putting things off. Hey, I said, my voice cutting through the celebration. Can everyone hold up for a minute? I need to say something. The room quieted, all eyes turning to me. I felt Misha's presence beside me, solid and reassuring. My mouth was dry. This is weird. I've never been good at this kind of thing. But you guys are my team, my family, and I need to be honest with you. I took a breath, aware of everyone watching, waiting. I'm gay, I said, the words clear and strong. And Misha and I are together. Dating. Whatever you want to call it. The silence that followed felt endless. I watched emotions flicker across my teammate's face. Confusion, calculation. Then our captain, Derek Martinez, stood up. Okay, he said simply. Cool? Anyone got a problem with that? He looked around the room with a challenging stare, daring anyone to object. A few guys shook their heads. Most just looked uncomfortable, like they weren't sure how to react. Then Jake Wilson, one of our defensemen, spoke up. So that's why you two have been playing like you share a brain lately. Makes sense? A ripple of laughter, some of the tension breaking. Seriously, though, Jake continued, I don't care who you're sleeping with, as long as you keep feeding me those beautiful assists. And Volkov, your English has gotten way better. So whatever tutoring method you guys are using, it's working. More laughter, and I felt the tightness in my chest ease slightly. Not everyone was comfortable. I could see it in the way a few guys wouldn't meet my eyes, the way the celebration had lost some of its energy. But no one was overtly hostile, no one walked out or said anything cruel. It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was a start. After most of the team had cleared out, Derek approached me and Misha. It took guts, he said. Both of you. I respect that. Thanks, Cap, I said. Listen, some of the guys might need time to adjust, and there might be some comments. You know how locker room culture is? But as your captain, I've got your back. Anyone crosses a line, they deal with me. We appreciate that, Misha said. Derek clapped us both on the shoulder. Just keep playing like you did tonight, and we'll be fine. Now get out of here. I'm sure you two have celebrating to do. The news spread quickly. By the next day, it was all over social media. Local sports blogs picked it up, then bigger outlets. Pioneer forward comes out as gay. Dating teammate, read one headline. Hockey's latest out player finds love on his own team, read another. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive from friends and family, I'd been terrified to tell. My mom called, crying, saying she loved me and was proud of me. My sister texted a string of rainbow emojis, followed by about time. I always knew, dummy. But there were negative messages too. Anonymous accounts calling me slurs, saying I was disgusting, that I didn't belong in hockey. A few former teammates reached out, not to support me, but to express disappointment. To say they'd thought better of me. Each negative message stung, but they didn't devastate me the way I'd feared they would. Because for every hateful comment, there were 5 supportive ones. LGBTQ+ fans reaching out to say how much it meant to see representation in hockey. Young people thanking me for being visible, saying it gave them hope, and through it all, Misha was there. He fielded media requests, helped me craft statements, held me when the weight of it all became too much. He'd been through this before, knew the rhythm of public coming out, understood both the beauty and the ugliness of visibility. "It gets easier," he promised one night as we lay in my bed, fully clothed but wrapped around each other. The attention dies down. People move on to the next story. And you're left with your truth, your freedom. "No regrets?" I asked, echoing his words from that first night. "No regrets," he confirmed, kissing my forehead. "Best decision I ever made was asking you for help with English." I laughed. "Your English was already pretty good. You didn't really need my help, did you?" "Maybe not," he admitted with a grin. "But I needed an excuse to spend time with you. And it worked, didn't it? You manipulative genius, prefer romantic strategist." We were laughing when my phone buzzed with a new message. I almost ignored it. But the sender name caught my eye. "Coach Richardson, need to see you in Volkov, in my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. My stomach dropped. "Misha, Coach wants to see us." He read the message over my shoulder, his body tensing. Could be anything, or it could be him benching us. Or cutting me from the team. "There's a morality clause in our contracts." "Stop," Misha said firmly. "Don't spiral. We'll deal with whatever it is tomorrow, together." But despite his reassurance, neither of us slept well that night. Coach Richardson's office was sparse and functional, walls covered with plays and motivational quotes. He sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable as Misha and I took the seats across from him. My heart was racing. This was at the moment where my career might end, where my decision to be authentic could cost me everything I'd worked for. "Boys," Coach began, and I braced myself. "I'll get straight to the point. The league office called me yesterday. They've received some complaints from sponsors from a few team owners. People uncomfortable with the situation." My throat tightened. Misha reached over and took my hand, a gesture of solidarity, even in the face of potential disaster. Coach looked at our joined hands, then back to our faces. "I told them," he continued, "that what my players do off the ice is their business, as long as they show up and play their asses off on it, which you too have been doing. Your chemistry has transformed our offense. We wouldn't be heading into playoffs with this momentum without you." Hope flickered in my chest. "So we're not being benched?" "Benched." Coach looked genuinely surprised. "Hell no. You're my starting forwards. Why would I bench you?" He leaned back in his chair. "Look, I'll be honest. This makes some people uncomfortable. The hockey world isn't always the most progressive place. You're going to face scrutiny, questions, probably some nasty comments from opposing teams." "We can handle it," Misha said quietly. "I believe you can. And I want you to know, this team has your back. I've already talked to the captains, made it clear that any homophobic bullshit in our locker room won't be tolerated. Anyone has a problem with you too. They can come talk to me about it." The relief was so intense I felt dizzy. "Thank you, Coach. That means everything." "Don't thank me. Just keep playing the way you've been playing. Show everyone that this," he gestured between us, "doesn't change what matters, which is your performance on the ice." He paused. "Actually, it seems to have improved your performance, so maybe more players should try dating their teammates." Misha laughed, the sound bright with relief. "I'll pass that suggestion along." As we left the office, I felt lighter than I had in days. The fear that had been coiled in my stomach had loosened. We weren't being punished for being ourselves. Our coach had our backs. Our team supported us, see? Misha said, pulling me into a quick hug once we were alone in the hallway. "I told you we'd face it together." "You did," I agreed. "And you were right. About all of it, playoffs were intense, in a way regular season games never were. Every shift mattered. Every mistake could be costly. Every victory was hard-earned and precious. And through it all, Misha and I played like we were extensions of each other. The media attention was relentless. Every game featured commentary about the gay hockey players, the teammates in love. Some of it was positive, celebrating our openness and talent. Some of it was invasive, speculation about our relationship that went way beyond appropriate. And some of it was hostile, opposing fans bringing homophobic signs to games. players on other teams making comments on the ice. The first time an opposing player called Misha a slur during a game, I saw red. I was in his face before I could think, ready to fight, ready to defend him with everything I had. Not worth it, Misha said, pulling me back. He's trying to get in our heads, draw a penalty. Don't give him what he wants. The best revenge is on the scoreboard. Come on, 2 shifts later, Misha scored a goal, then skated past the player who'd insulted him and blew him a kiss. The crowd went wild. I laughed so hard I nearly fell over. That was Misha refusing to let hatred dim his light, responding to cruelty with joy and defiance. We continue 6-29 and made it through the first round of playoffs, then the second. With each victory, the attention intensified, but so did the support. LGBTQ+ groups organized watch parties at bars across Portland. Pride flags started appearing in the stands at our home games. Young queer fans reached out on social media, telling us what it meant to see themselves represented in hockey. It was overwhelming and beautiful. Exactly what Misha had meant about authenticity being worth the cost. In the conference finals, we faced the Seattle Raptors, our biggest rivals, a team known for physical, aggressive play. The first 2 games were brutal, each team winning one, series tight and tense. Before Game 3, Derek gathered the team for a pep talk. "Listen up," he said. "Seattle's going to try to get in our heads, divide us, make us play emotionally instead of smart. They're going to target Hayes and Volkov because they think that's a weakness. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show them it's our strength. We're going to play as a united team, protect each other, and win this thing together." Everyone got that? A chorus of agreement, fists raised, energy crackling through the locker room. "Hayes, Volkov," Derek said, looking at us. "You too, play your game. We've got your backs." Game 7 of the conference finals went to overtime. The score was tied 3-3. Both teams exhausted, the tension in the arena electric. I was playing on adrenaline and determination, every muscle screaming, every breath burning with 2 minutes left in OT. I stole the puck from a Seattle defenseman, saw Misha breaking toward the net, and sent a pass that threaded through 3 opposing players to land perfectly on his stick. Time seemed to slow as he wound up, released, and the puck flew past the goalie into the net. The arena erupted. Our team poured over the boards, piling on Misha in celebration. I reached him last, pulling him into a hug that lifted him off his skates. "We did it," he gasped, laughing. "We're going to the championship." "You did it," I corrected. "That was all you. That pass, though." His eyes were shining. "That was all trust. All us." Later in the locker room celebration, Derek pulled us aside. "You too," he said, "are the heart of this team. Don't ever forget that." The championship series was against the Denver Storm, the league's top-seeded team, favorites to win. We were underdogs, but we'd been underdogs before. The series went the full 7 games, each one a battle. The Storm had skill and experience, but we had heart and chemistry. And we had something to prove, not just to the league, but to every person who'd ever said that gay players didn't belong in hockey. Game 7 was in Denver. Hostile territory. The crowd roaring for our defeat. But we'd faced hostility before. We knew how to channel it into fuel. The game was tied 2-2 with 5 minutes left in the third period. I was exhausted running on fumes, but I couldn't let up. None of us could. Then Misha intercepted a pass, broke away on a partial breakaway with 1 defenseman back. I pushed my legs to move faster, skating parallel to him, drawing the defenseman's attention. "Connor," Misha called, and I knew what he wanted. It was a play we'd practiced 100 times the Gavan-Go. Simple, but effective when executed right. Misha passed to me. I once touched it back to him as he cut toward the net, and suddenly he had a clear shot on goal. The puck left his stick, a perfect shot, top corner, and time seemed to freeze as it flew toward the net. The goalie dove, stretching. Fingers grasping, the puck hit the back of the net, 3-2. The Denver crowd went silent as our bench erupted. 5 minutes later, when the final buzzer sounded and we'd held on to win, the celebration was indescribable. We'd done it. Against all odds. against all the doubt and discrimination. We'd won the championship. The championship celebration was a blurt trophy presentations, interviews, champagne showers in the locker room. Through it all, Misha and I kept finding each other, sharing looks of disbelief and joy. During the press conference, a reporter asked me what the championship meant as an openly gay player. I thought about my answer carefully. It means that who you love doesn't determine your worth as an athlete, I said. It means that authenticity isn't a weakness, it's a strength. And it means that hockey has room for everyone who loves the game. Beside me, Misha squeezed my hand under the table. Out of sight of the cameras, but they're solid and real. That night, after the official celebrations had wound down, Misha and I escaped to my apartment. We were alone for the first time in hours, the championship trophy sitting on my coffee table because we'd been too excited to leave it at the arena. Can you believe it? I asked, still stunned. We actually won. We did. Misha pulled me close, his arms around my waist. You and me, and our amazing team. You know what's wild? I said 4 months ago I was terrified of who I was. I couldn't even admit to myself that I was gay. And now, I looked around my apartment, at the trophy, at Misha's face. Now I'm standing here as an out gay man, a championship winner, in love with the most incredible person I've ever met. You love me? Misha asked softly, his eyes searching mine. I realized I'd said it without thinking, the truth slipping out naturally. But I didn't want to take it back. Oh yeah. I said, I love you. Is that okay? His answer was a kiss that communicated everything words couldn't: joy and passion and promise and relief. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you too, he whispered. From that first day in the equipment room, I was hoping you'd be brave enough to see what I saw. And you were. You're the bravest person I know, Connor Hayes. I learned from the best, I said, and kissed him again 3 months later. As the off-season settled in, and the frenzy of our championship win had calmed to a manageable buzz, Misha and I were in a good place. We'd moved in together, a decision that had felt both terrifying and absolutely right. His apartment had been too small, mine too sparse. So we'd found a new place that was ours, not his or mine, but ours together. I'd come out to my extended family, sat down with my parents for long conversations about who I was and what I needed from them. It hadn't all been easy. There were tears and difficult questions and moments of hurt, but we'd worked through it. They were trying, and that was what mattered. The hockey community's response had been mixed, but largely positive. Some teams had reached out, saying they wanted to create more inclusive environments. LGBTQ+ organizations had asked Misha and me to speak at events, to share our story with young people struggling with their identities. We'd said yes to some, no to others, learning to balance visibility with privacy, advocacy with our own need for normalcy. One evening, as we cooked dinner together in our new Katuna, the domestic routine that still felt novel and wonderful, Misha brought up something that had been on his mind. I got a call from a producer today, he said. Chopping vegetables with practice deficiency. They want to make a documentary about us. About our story, coming out in hockey, winning the championship. I paused mid-stir of the pasta sauce. What did you say? I told them I needed to talk to you first. It's your story too. Your decision. I thought about it, weighing exposure against impact. Do you think it would help people? I think it could. Show young LGBTQ+ athletes that they don't have to choose between sports and authenticity. Show the hockey world that we're just people who love the game. He set down his knife, turning to face me. But it would mean putting our relationship even more in the public eye. And I know that's been hard sometimes. Has been, I admitted. But you know what's been worth it? The messages we get. The kids who tell us we gave them courage. The parents who say seeing us helped them understand their own children better. I moved closer to him, wrapping my arms around his waist. If we can help even one person by sharing our story, then yes, let's do it. Misha's smile was radiant. You're sure? I'm sure. We faced everything else together. We can face this too. When training camp started for the new season, there was a noticeable shift in the locker room culture. Management had brought in diversity and inclusion training. Derek, along with the other team leaders. It made it clear that respect for all teammates was non-negotiable. It wasn't perfect. Change never is. But it was progress. 2 new players had joined the team. And during their introduction to the roster, one of them, a rookie named Tyler, had approached Misha and me nervously. "Hey," he'd said, his voice quiet. "I just wanted to say thanks for being visible, for being yourselves." It made me feel like maybe I could be too. "You're—" Misha had asked gently. "Bye," Tyler confirmed, the word barely above a whisper. "Haven't told anyone on the team yet, but knowing you guys are here, that you're accepted, it helps. You'll tell them when you're ready," I'd assured him. "And when you do, we'll be right there with you." Tyler had nodded, relief evident in his face, and returned to the group of new players. "Look at you," Misha had murmured later, mentoring baby gaze. "I'm so proud." "Shut up," I'd laughed, shoving him lightly. "You started this." "I'm just following your lead. We started this together," he'd corrected, pulling me close, despite being in a semi-public space. "Everything good in my life, we do together." The documentary premiered at a film festival to standing ovations and tears. Watching our story on screen, the fear and courage, the love and growth, the challenges and triumphs, was surreal and emotional. We sat in the audience holding hands, and when the credits rolled, Misha leaned over and whispered, "No regrets?" "No regrets," I confirmed, kissing him softly. The Pioneers didn't repeat as champions that second season, but we made it to the semifinals, played our hearts out, and proved that our championship hadn't been a fluke. Misha and I continued to be leaders on the team, both in skill and in creating a culture of acceptance. Tyler came out to the team mid-season, and true to our word, Misha and I stood beside him. The team's response was overwhelmingly positive. They'd learned from our experience. It's grown as people and as a group. Off the ice, Misha and I built a life together. We adopted a dog, a ridiculous golden retriever named Stanley, after the Stanley Cup. We hosted dinner parties, went on road trips, argued about whose turn it was to do dishes and who controlled the TV remote. We were boringly, wonderfully domestic. But we also continued our advocacy work, speaking at schools and community centers, partnering with LGBTQ+ youth organizations, using our platform to make hockey and sports in general more inclusive. On the anniversary of that, Tuesday night, when Misha had first asked for help, we went back to the arena after hours. The building was empty, quiet, except for the hum of the Zamboni in the distance. "You know what I was thinking that night?" Misha asked as we stood at center ice. "When I asked you to help me with English?" "What?" "I was thinking that you were the most beautiful man I'd ever seen, and I was terrified you'd say no. Not just to helping me, but to all of this." He gestured around us, encompassing the arena, our relationship, our life. "I almost did say no," I admitted. "I was so scared of what I might feel if I spent time with you, what it might reveal about me, but you didn't say no. It's the best decision I ever made." I pulled him close, our breath misting in the cold air. "You asked for help, and what followed changed my life. Changed everything. Changed it for the better." "For the better," I confirmed. "I found myself, found my courage, found love, found home." I kissed him, slow and deep, in the middle of the ice where we'd spent countless hours perfecting our craft. "Thank you for asking. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for showing me it was safe to be myself. Thank you for being brave enough to try," Misha responded, his eyes shining. "Thank you for choosing love over fear. Thank you for being my partner in every way that matters." We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. 2 hockey players who'd found something more precious than any championship, a love that was authentic, accepting, and absolutely worth fighting for. As we skated off the ice together, hand in hand, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The fear and denial, the courage and discovery, the challenges and triumphs. It hadn't been easy, but every difficult moment had been worth it for this, for the freedom to love openly, for the joy of being fully myself, for the privilege of building a life with someone who saw me, truly saw me, and loved what he found, That Tuesday night in the equipment room, when Misha asked for help, he'd given me the greatest gift anyone could offer, the chance to become who I was always meant to be, and I'd taken it. We both had. Together.